conducting research and writing research is exploring and selecting a theoretical and conceptual framework. And so many people view that step as part of the literature review, but it's actually more than that. And I guess Dr. Muhammad agrees with me. It's more about grounding the research in existing theories and concepts. So to tell us more about this, we're honored to have today Dr. Mohammed Alzahrani. He's part of the English Academic Institute at King Abdulaziz University. He's an assistant professor who has completed his Ph.D. In the United States at the University of North Carolina. Is it Carolina?
UNCG.
In 2023. His research interests include applied linguistics, reflective practice, and qualitative research. So, without further ado, the floor is yours, Dr. Muhammad.
Thank you so much.
Okay, just leave this here.
So I should use this one.
No, you can use them both.
Appreciate it. All right, Bismillah, Salam Rasulullah. Welcome, dear graduate students, dear colleagues. So my presentation today is about developing conceptual or theoretical framework. That's better? Okay. All right, so in this presentation, I'm gonna go over through keywords related to this workshop, more details about conceptual framework, and also more details about theoretical framework. Then we're going to have an engaging activity after that. We're going to see key differences, actually more differences, models about the differences between conceptual / theoretical framework. We're going to see also some examples, and then final writing tips. Finally, of course, you're going to have time for Q&As. All right, so first, keywords, we know the words concepts and theory, right? So concepts basically ideas. But when it comes to theory, it's a set of interrelated concepts, propositions, definitions, already tested in the literature. The aim of a theory is to explain, to predict, to describe a phenomenon. For the conceptual framework, it's a more of a justification of the overview of the research design, finding the current research gaps in the literature. And it's also giving an overview about the research design, the methodology, the methods, and so on. For theoretical framework, it's a more like a micro level. It's a logically developed set of concepts derived from one or more theories. The aim of that is to guide the whole research, specifically the methodology in the research design. So it's the aim of that is to fully guide that research design. All right, let's talk more about conceptual framework. So what is the purpose of conceptual framework? So conceptual framework explains why the research is important, the significance of the research. It also articulates potential contributions and answers the why question. So why are you doing this research? This is an important part and goal of conceptual framework. For the content, so what does it include? It includes literature review, research questions, of course, rationale for the research, context, and justification for the methodology. For the development of conceptual framework, first you should have a much knowledge about the context, more than theories or the concepts. And also the researcher forms this conceptual framework gradually from the literature. This conceptual framework, it may evolve during the process of doing the research, just like we see usually in qualitative research. So the idea of conceptual framework is like the mind map, as you can see here, the overview about research design, research ideas, research questions, and so on. Now, going closer or going to the micro level, which is theoretical framework. So the purpose of framework is to apply or to test a theory on your research problem, your research questions, or research goals. It offers explanations of the events, of the concepts, based on the theories itself. And it also shed light on the phenomenon. It includes explanation of the theory itself and why it's relevant to your research goals. And also includes very thorough definitions and discussions about the concepts of the theory itself. It also includes the variables, how to identify the variables within the theoretical framework. For the development stage, first you need to know much knowledge about the theory itself. So you need to write more and to explain more about the theory rather than the context. Also, in this case, researcher selects and applies a theory to the analysis. Usually, the theoretical framework develops, it's already developed before using or collecting data. All right, so let's take a quick activity here. So please go ahead and scan the code. So conceptual framework includes is it all above? Okay. So I think most of you are right in this case. So it's all of the above. It includes more focus on the context, general idea about the research project in general, the literature review, of course, and research questions. Let's go next. Theoretical framework includes which choice in this? All right, I think most of you are right in this. It's again all of the above. So it includes justification of theory for design and analysis, more focus on one or two theories, definitions of the theory concepts. I will not share. Thank you. All right, so after having these two questions, now let's get deeper into more differences between conceptual framework and theoretical framework. And in some studies, they call it like conceptual differences between conceptual framework and theoretical framework. So when it comes to the foundation, it's the early stage, which includes the synthesis of the concept, so basically from the literature. But in theoretical framework, you already have specific concepts and details from a well-established theory in the field. For the goal to describe and understand relationships between concepts in conceptual framework, but for theoretical framework, to apply or to test the theory on your research. So conceptual framework follows the inductive reasoning, which is basically understanding from the specific observations or concepts, while theoretical framework is a deductive reasoning to apply the theory to understand the small cases or concepts. For the focus, of course, much more focus here on the context for conceptual framework, but it's more focused on the theory and the definition of theoretical concepts in that theory itself. So in this case, the researcher writes a framework, the conceptual framework, from relevant concepts. But in the theoretical framework, the researcher writes the framework by applying those details of the theory concepts on his or her research. Finally, for development, again, this evolves during the process, just like in qualitative research. I'm talking here about conceptual framework. And for theoretical framework, it's already fixed. It's already well-established theory in the field, but you need to provide more details about those concepts of the theory itself and how you apply those concepts or the theory itself on your research. All right, this is also another figure to show the differences between conceptual framework and theoretical framework, and also theory. So what I like in this model here is that the center we have here data. So if you are moving from your data, just like in subjective, inductive, qualitative research, so you're starting from your data, and then you get to know some theories about that, and then you get a theoretical framework, and then you form the whole conceptual framework. But when it comes to coming from the theory or the concepts themselves, then you go down to the theory, and then you apply those theories on the data itself. So I think this is very useful when it comes to the data you have. Are you going from data, or are you going from theory? Yes, sometimes it still can be confusing how to differentiate between conceptual or theoretical framework, but here's some useful analogy. So think of conceptual framework just like a house. Also the theoretical framework as the floor plans, just like the more details, the more specific measurements, specific functions for the areas or the rooms of the house. So conceptual framework is like a house, so you have broad concepts, synthesized from multiple theories based on researchers' concept synthesis, and explains how the concepts are related to the study. For the theoretical framework, it's like a floor plan, so it focused on concepts from a specific theory. And also it's based on established theory by a scholar in the field. It explains how the theory informs the study. So hopefully this is a useful analogy so that we remember when it comes to confusion between theoretical conceptual framework. All right, so let's go next. So examples, if you're doing a study on social media use and self-esteem, you can use social comparison theory. So in this case, you are moving from the theory. You're starting from the theory. So in this case, the researchers should explain how the theory's concepts will be used to frame research questions or methodology or even analysis. So in this case, the research or the theory dictates the research questions, the research data analysis as well. When it comes to conceptual framework, for example, if you have study about reasons or factors affecting student retention in online learning, so in this case, you need to develop a model. You need to search the literature to find the relationships between variables like student motivation, online interaction, instructor support, technology access, drawing from the literature on educational psychology or online learning. So here you are coming from the literature. Unlike in the theoretical framework, you are coming from the theory. For conceptual framework samples, I think there's plenty in the literature, and some writers titled the section as conceptual framework or the theory itself, and so on. So let's see some examples here on conceptual framework. Hopefully this is going to be clear. So in this case here, or this study, integrating sociocultural perspectives into a university classroom, a case study of students' experience. So you can tell even from the abstract. So the sociocultural theory here is the theoretical framework. And you can tell maybe here the title is not directly mentioning sociocultural theory, but more details here about the theory. As you can see here, he's talking here about Piaget, Vygotsky, and so on. So even in methodology here, research questions, so you see a sociocultural theory is mentioned in the research questions. Another example here. See, that's the same example. All right, this one here. So in this study, for example, here, student thinking and the professional development of college biology instructors and analysis through the lens of sociocultural theory. So again, you have here the same theory, but you can see there's a separate section about the theory, which is titled Theoretical Framework. So more and more details about the theory. See, it's kind of extensive writing about the theory, more than just like in only conceptual framework, more about the context and so on. All right, hopefully this is useful examples here. All right, writing tips. So when it comes to conceptual framework, you need to clearly define your key concepts. You need to explain the relationships between those concepts from the literature. And you need to demonstrate how the framework informs the approach. For a theoretical framework, you need to have a thorough and detailed discussion about the theory itself and how you are going to relate and use that theory in the research. Very important thing here when it comes to defining the conceptual or the theoretical concept of the theory itself. So in those theories, For example, the theory I used in my doctoral research, I used chat, cultural historical activity theory. So I had to spend, of course, extra time to learn about the theory and to define each concept and also the principles of chat theory in a very much detail. So that's a very important point when it comes to a theoretical framework. And also, you need to show how the theory guides your research, data collection, and analysis as well. Final tips, and that's if you're doing both conceptual and theoretical framework, or if you're doing only conceptual framework. You need to be very clear and concise. So you can have a separate section or a chapter for theoretical framework, especially if you're doing theoretical framework. And of course, you need to check also with your advisor on this. You need also to justify your choice and relate to the framework in your research. Finally, you need to use visuals or tables, especially when it comes to conceptual framework. So I think this is also a very important point here. So when it comes to conceptual framework, especially in qualitative research, yes, you will go through the literature, you'll read so many resources, but again, when you finally finalize your conceptual framework, maybe you can visualize that into a diagram, or you can put it in also in a table. That's going to be very helpful. And this is the references. Any time for questions?
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed, for a very insightful discussion on developing conceptual and using theoretical framework and research. Any questions, comments, maybe? I mean, you can share your experience, or you can refer to whatever research you are undertaking at the moment, and probably raise questions around around conceptual framework or theoretical framework in that research. So you're more than welcome to use examples from your own research.
Assalamu alaikum. Well, I'm not going to ask a question, but I'm going to raise an important issue in this forum. Theory building, working on a theory is very important in research. My question is, how long will we continue to test the theories propounded abroad, like UK, USA, Canada, Australia, and so on? Is it not time to develop our own theory and test the theory? For example, there are two kinds of research. One is theory building research, and the other one is testing the theory kind of research. Most of the researchers which I have come across so far, from the novice researchers or the senior ones, are based on testing the theory. Something was propounded in America and UK, and we test. We write a research paper, we publish in America. When we do something new related to our own Saudi context, these papers are not accepted in America because they do not understand the context in which we are working. So this is the time to develop our own theory and test. Everywhere, English has changed. Like Singapore English is known as Singlish, Indian English, Pakistani English. The time has come that we start thinking about Saudi English, because that area is very huge, and lots of researchers are published every day in journals like English language teaching in Canada, journals in Australia, America, because our DSR, the Institute of Scientific Research on Majlis al-Ilmi, does not consider second grade and third grade publications. We consider that the publication accepted and published in America, Canada, and UK are only the right kind of research. My point is that we should start making our own theory, which is related to our own Saudi context, and then test, write research papers, and publish in so-called or established journals. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. That's a very interesting point. And one of the key differences between conceptual framework and theoretical framework I found is that conceptual framework, usually in qualitative research, because it's based on reviewing the whole research, literature, the context, which is very important in this case, as you mentioned. From that theoretical framework, from that conceptual lens, you can search for theories. So conceptual framework is mainly based on searching for theories, for new theories in the field. For example, when you talk about the versions of English, or the Englishes, world Englishes, those theories, those are kind of new theories, right, in the field of applied linguistics, for example. Those are the results of conceptualizing the whole views from the literature, from the context specifically. So this is why when you're only doing a conceptual framework, usually in qualitative research, you're focusing on the context, on the country or in the city. The context of language education in this case. So yes, you need to develop a very good conceptual framework in that study. And then from there you can search for new theories in the field, in the context that could help, and also to be testified also again. So this is why there's no like separate line here between conceptual and theoretical framework. So we can also test the theory of, for example, Saudi English. So in this case, I'm going to do more theoretical framework here in this case. So there's no like hard line between conceptual and framework in this case. But yeah, basically we can say moving from conceptual framework, basically usually in qualitative research, we're searching for new theories in the field, and more importantly, in the context. So hopefully I answer your question.
Building up on his question, I guess his question has this twofold question. One has to do with the conceptual framework, and the other with the theoretical framework. Talking about conceptual framework, do you think it's appropriate for any researcher to highlight the contextual aspect of use of that concept in the discussion of concepts or discussion of conceptual framework? Or do we talk about concepts as ideas without like any envisioned realm of application or use?
Yeah, when it comes to a conceptual framework, you can think about it as a big umbrella, okay, of your research, okay? And from there, you need to search about the ideas more in the context. In writing, technically, you don't need to explain that, because it's basically what you're doing when it comes to literature review, research questions, and also the overview of research methods and data analysis and so on. At that point, if you really need a kind of another support for that umbrella, you can use also a theoretical framework. So that's exactly what I did in my doctoral dissertation, although it took me 6 extra months to read about the theory, but that was helpful, and I liked it. And I felt it's like kind of my theoretical framework, conceptual framework, they are more interrelated, and I felt more ready to go through the methodology. So yeah, and when it comes to a theoretical framework, you need to write more about that. When it comes to a conceptual framework, you can title the section as a conceptual framework, but it doesn't matter. It's mostly looking for the research, literature, and the context, basically.
Thank you for that. And my question would be, like, when do you think a researcher is good enough, or it's good time for him or her to develop their own theory rather than testing the theory?
I think that's going to take time. But the more you're working on conceptual framework, for example, when it comes to new theory in the context, so you need to be constant in terms of searching the literature, searching more about the context. So you need to survey and you need to review all the study in that specific context, and you come up with a theory. And from there, you can also, the same researcher, you can also test that theory on another research, or even in the same research. And in this case, you are also developing conceptual / theoretical framework at the same time.
That's definitely a long journey.
Yeah, it's going to take much more time. So, for example, I spent extra 6 months on reading about cultural historical activity theory, and I had to write more and more about that, for example, in my dissertation.
Thank you so much. Any further questions, comments, discussion? Yeah, please.
Thank you, Doctor. It was such an insightful session. If someone is incorporating both conceptual and theoretical framework, let's say, how do they integrate these two things smoothly into, a good flow of the research work?
Okay, I think the better way I can explain that to maybe share some work on my dissertation. Just give me a second, please. So, for example, if you see here, I'm just going to go to the table of content. So, although I'm using a separate section here about theoretical framework in the introduction, in the early beginning of my research and data collection, I'm sorry, not data collection, the literature review, but I still have to add additional chapter about the theory itself. So basically what I did, so I started doing literature review work about reflective practice. That's my topic. So I did on reflective practice on teacher education field, and then reflective practice on the TESOL, applied linguistics field, and then about the context, reflective practice. So here I'm working mainly specifically on conceptual framework. Okay, at that point, I decided to use CHAT, cultural historical activity theory, in this research. So I remember my advisor told me that I need to read more and write more about the theory. So I had to spend much time on that. So I started working on CHAT, on cultural historical activity theory. I started from the beginning about the CHAT development, affordances, CHAT in this study. Now I am going back to my conceptual framework. About the 7 sociocultural elements in CHAT, and also I put those in table with definitions and with their functions in my study, and also the principles as well. And this is kind of here relating my theory back to the whole study, or justification for using the theory in the study research. And then I started the methodology. So that's basically, so this, it took me actually more time, and this is why the doctoral committee suggested that I should put this in a separate chapter. But again, every case is different.
Which corporate sector are you concerned with?
Sorry?
Which sector are you concerned with? You said corporate.
Incorporation. I'm saying incorporation.
Incorporation with what?
Yeah. Incorporation of the conceptual and theoretical framework.
Repeat your question, please, again. What did you ask?
I said if someone is incorporating or merging two things in their research work, how they're going to do it into like smooth integration to make everything easy to understand.
Oh, theoretical framework or conceptual framework helps you to build up objectives, research questions, sometimes hypotheses, then selection of the sample, techniques you are going to apply. Doctor pointed out analysis and all. Then it will be mixed method approach or qualitative or quantitative. So one thing, from topic to the end, everything is related in the landscape of research. From topic, you develop objectives. From objectives, you go to research questions. From research questions or hypotheses, you choose the method of research, is qualitative or quantitative, descriptive or analytical, or comparative. You are going to use ANOVA or ANCOVA, analysis of variance, analysis of covariance, that is T-test and F-test, and then you conclude. And then you write your implementation and recommendations. From topic to the end, everything is related. You are doing analysis, you will go back to the topic. You are writing research questions, you are going back to the topic. So it should be on your fingertips what you are going to do. If you talk about the corporate sector, I listen wrong, but I explain that. Suppose you are in the marketing field and you are developing theoretical framework or conceptual framework. You will then study what is the trend of marketing. What is the trend of marketing in America and UK and UAE and Saudi Arabia, within Saudi Arabia, in smaller sectors and larger sectors. And then you build up a theory. And finally, you do literature review, which is related to, and then you develop your own strategy. I forgot, I did not tell my name, which is the first thing. I am Dr. Alzahrani. If you browse, you will find in PE.
Thank you.
And I think what you just shared resonate with what Dr. Mohammed shared with us, especially thank you for sharing that table of content of your thesis. It's interesting how the conceptual framework it comes up even as you progress in your research. So it's selecting the methodology, writing up the research question, phrasing the research question, the words. So they probably would be the same terminology used in that theory and that sort of thing. And then comes up again in the data analysis and interpretation of the findings. So it's not just a literature review thing kind of work or activity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's beyond that. So it's so you can consider that literature review research question as kind of, let's say, conceptual framework more with conventional research proposal. Okay, and then from there you can provide more depth about the context. And if you need to use the theoretical framework, you need to provide more details about the theory first, which is based on the objective philosophy, maybe as Dr. Inkhab mentioned. So you're starting again from the moving from the inductive reasoning to the deductive reasoning in this case. And then from there, I mean, the most difficult job in doing theoretical framework is to provide much details about the theory itself, to explain it, how the concepts relate to your research, which is vice versa when it comes to conceptual framework. You're moving from the context, from the literature.
Thank you. So how are you doing with the building or discussing or writing about conceptual framework in your own research? You could share that with us. Have you reached that part? Not yet. What about the rest of you? Any plans you have for exploring and writing about the conceptual framework? Maybe yes. Okay, any further comments? Yes.
Sometimes a topic has or a theory, there are multiple theories that could
explain the topic. So how could we choose which one for a specific theory, or could we combine multiple theories? So that's, I think, I'm not there yet, but that's a concern.
So have you started the conceptual framework, like doing a literature review?
I'm not in the research yet. That's the happening.
Okay. So it's basically which theory, maybe that's was your question, which theory or theories maybe that they can fit with your conceptual framework or your initial literature review at the moment. So the more theory that matches your literature review, research questions, data analysis, that's going to be better. So at the end, you'll have like kind of integrative way between the theoretical and conceptual framework. And sometimes in some cases, you can use 2 or 3 theories, although maybe it can be confusing, or they may not match by nature because every theory is different. But some 2 related theories could be the start of your forming theoretical framework. I would say 1 theory is a good, but it should match as many like points or of the design you have in your proposal. Hopefully that's clear. Well, the theory is going to dictate the research question, or in few cases, it's going to match the research question. So that's going to be a good match for your proposal. And then also, it's going to match the research analysis, the data analysis. In some cases, even data collection. So again, maybe this is going to be useful. Are you coming from the data, or you're coming from the theory? If you have much more knowledge about theories, interested in theories, like in general, so you can do conceptual framework and theoretical framework at the same time. If you are coming from data, from the context, so that case, maybe you are inclined more to qualitative research. You're going from the data, which is coming from the context. So again, you need to decide, you need to think about that kind of synergy, kind of integration, if that fits well. If you find a theory, it's contrasting your research design or your inclinement in your qualitative research, for example, so maybe you can stick with the conceptual framework.
The basic difference between theoretical and conceptual framework is theoretical framework lets the theory or a kind of abstract of the theories that you have evaluated from the literature review. It is related to theory. But conceptual framework is related to assumptions, beliefs, or concepts that you are going to take up in testing the empirical data, which is very important. When you are concerned with empirical data, then your research is going to be quantitative and analytical. But theoretical framework is only the outline of the abstract that you have studied from the literature review and you are going to use in your research. So that is the basic difference. When it comes to conceptual framework, you are considering the assumptions, beliefs, hypotheses, and something related to the concept that you are dealing with, and it is going to be related to empirical data. Remember, empirical. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. With this, we end our session. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed.